Hello and welcome back to Sepang. We're here the third day of the first official test of the year, the Sepang International Circuit. You join myself, Jack Gorst, and Simon Crafar right at the end of the front straight. We're just here on the inside of turn one as Cal Crutchlow on his Yamaha test machine goes past. It is a very important day, none more so for the fact that yesterday there was all sorts of rain delays and stoppages which stopped many of the riders completing some of their test programs for day two. And Simon, there are certainly some that today are very busy indeed.
Yeah, you can feel the pressure in pit lane. I've been talking to a couple of team managers, team staff. You can really feel it because you can imagine coming into this test, they had a plan for the 3 days, and it's kind of, well, some of the stuff has gone literally out the window because of the rain we've had. We lost a lot on the first day. The second morning was a really late start. They've probably lost a full day in total. So I got told this morning that, for example, Yamaha are not worrying about checking the chassis, the new chassis and swing arm. They're focusing on the aero because the aero, like everyone, they have to have it homologated before the first race. So they want to know what for sure is better here, what is for sure better in Portimao, so they can give it to Danny Aldred and say that's what we're going to use. Otherwise, they've only got one update during the year. They don't want to make a mistake because you're wasting that update.
Exactly, and Fabio Quartararo yesterday in his debrief confirmed that whole thing. He said the thing he was most unsure about at the minute was the new aero package. And obviously, as we know, aero at the minute is massive in MotoGP, and Yamaha have been giving it both barrels, haven't they?
And they can test the chassis any time, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You know, so they can bring that in when they know, when they have everything else settled. Apparently, engine-wise, they are happy.
Yeah.
While we're staying on Yamaha, they're pretty much confirmed they're going with what they've got. They're saying they're happy. They need more, but little tweaks during the season, whether it's intake or fueling, and Carl loves winding us up, disturbing us. They can play with other little things that go around that engine package to try and get the last bit during the year.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting actually that Cal Crutchlow's out there at the minute because of course he is finally back on track after a couple of days relaxing after being all there throughout the shakedown. And interestingly, listening to his bike, it does sound a little bit
aggressive
different or something aggressive.
Yeah.
So there's obviously something being worked on there, whether it's to do with electronics or engine. But I'm sure, as I say, largely they are happy with that engine. And speaking of engines, that's Brad Binder.
On the earlier, like the original sounding engine.
Yeah.
He's on that, but Jack still has one of each.
He does.
And he mentioned in his debrief that he really likes the new engine.
Certainly does.
Says there's still things to iron out, but he thinks it's a step in the right direction. Pole has one of those new sounding engines today. If you look in his garage on the left side, same as Jack on the left side, and be interesting to see what he says tonight about it, because you know the positive feedback these riders are giving KTM about that engine. It could be that all the KTMs sound like that, and gases.
Yes.
At the start of the season. Be interesting to see.
Well, I think they probably will end up sounding like that. We all know that recently a lot of the engines, particularly in 5-6 years, have gone to a general deeper tone with what they've been changing to do with firing order, etc. So certainly gas, definitely, and KTM do bad. Looking to go in that direction. It was actually a great comparison. It's a shame that we couldn't start this live just 5 minutes earlier because Paul was out here on track with his teammate Augusto Fernandez following him, and it was clear in the audio that there are two very different engines there. So certainly a very good comparison indeed. Now, next, we'll talk about Ducati, shall we? Because of course, Ducati, as ever in this test, it's all just small steps and little tidbits, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So I had a chat to Tardosi this morning, not long before this actually, and asked him, what are you working on today? You know, what's the aim? And he said that basically they wanted Pecco to get up to speed, like flat out on the 22 bike, and then jump on the 23 for the clearest possible impression of the differences. He says they're happy with the 23 bike, but depending on rider preference, there's some areas that some riders don't like as much.
Yes.
So they want real clear feedback today to make decisions on, confirming that engine or the machine altogether. I know they have an engine, they've got aero, that's a little different. They've got aero packages, and I believe they've got chassis as well that they're working on. They're playing with two different swing arms. With Ducati, again, you're seeing some team members and riders working on exactly right on time. The aero, that's the
update, isn't it? That's the ground effect side fairing, which actually Pecco today have noticed on both of his bikes has the older one. Ducts. Yeah. So it certainly seems Pecco's made his mind up on that.
Yeah, well, last night in a debrief, Pecco said that the newer Aprilia style one, with a big wide belly pan, has some positive effects. As Miguel runs wide, is it?
Ralph Fernandez, actually. Well, that's in tune with what our first comment was when we came down here. He looked like he was
pushing hard.
Yeah, he really was giving it some, wasn't he?
Yeah, aggressive. But I've got to point out, while we're talking about Raul, very happy. Like, he's happy, and Aprilia seem really happy with him. So that wide belly pan on the Ducati, Pecco said, it has some positive effects, but it makes the bike heavier. So everyone else is back to backing it today. And Pecco's focusing, I believe, on that engine, making sure 100% he likes the 23, or points out at least what he doesn't like.
Yeah, you certainly can't blame him for wanting to double check.
Because that didn't go wrong right last year, did it?
No, it didn't. No, it definitely didn't. And it kind of cost him 5 or 6 races where he wasn't really in tip-top condition. Speaking of someone that looks quite in good form, well, a factory actually, Aprilia. Alecia's lap time this morning that he set, a 58.3, was 6/10 quicker than what he qualified here last year, which was only, 4 months ago now. So it certainly seems that Aleix feels a bit more comfortable with the new bike, and it seems to be, at least from what we've seen in the garage, that is the case. Both Aleix and Maverick both have the 23 bikes in their garage now, and the 22 bike, which we were comparing to before, nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, that disappeared pretty fast, didn't it?
It did.
All they used the 22 machine in the Aprilia factory garage for was to get a base, like a reference point, get the rider up to speed on it, and then jump across. They've both liked the 23 machine, as we mentioned on the first day, and they've stuck with it pretty much in all areas is better. What they did say, Aprilia, this is an interesting, they said because it's not as big a company.
Yeah.
They can't afford to make as many mistakes. They said they're pretty proud of the people in the background that run through all the simulations, basically computer and design. They do it so, carefully, thoroughly, that it's so not to make mistakes, get here and then have to throw parts in the bin, and they're really happy how that system's working. They're not wasting budget.
Yeah, I mean, well, their last 4 years are testament to that, aren't they? Ever since they brought the new bike, revolved around the new engine in 2020, every single year that bike has got better. It's never taken a step backwards, and that is something that most factories have come under fire for.
I've got to say, that takes years to build up.
Yeah.
But, to build up a system and teams and people with thorough enough knowledge to be able to do that, impressive. Anyway, next manufacturer.
Well, Honda, should we say. Honda is a trickier topic than Aprilia. The biggest thing I noticed today, well, let's start off with the backstory. Last night in Marc Marquez's debrief, he seemed to be not annoyed. I don't think he was annoyed, but he was maybe concerned about the volume of parts he was testing, and maybe it seemed as though he wanted to just focus on fewer things to be able to really have clear feedback and not be getting confused with which part was which. It does seem to be that way in the garage today, as there's only really 2 bikes in there that he's using. There is a third one in further back, but it's covered, and I don't think he's been out on that, or I've seen it wheeled to the front. So that experimental bike has gone. The new/old aero, or however you want to call it. And it really seems they're just trying to make that 23 bike better.
Yes, in his debrief last night, he said that he was He didn't like one of the bikes. He wouldn't tell us which one. He said one of the black bikes, I'm ditching it,
Yeah.
putting it aside. We were asking what one was it. He didn't want to say. So we had a look in the garage this morning, and the real experimental one that I think is HRC's effort to try and find something, it had different everything, didn't it? It was obviously the engine was the 23 engine, that's confirmed. All three black bikes were the 23 engine. He hasn't used the 22 engine since day one. So, but that experimental HRC bike has gone, and he's focusing on two that are look like updates of last year's bike. He's staying on that and still saying entry not quite there, meaning it doesn't feel as good as he wants. And the big problem is grip on exit, initial touch of the gas, driving off. But he says that also comes from turning. If you can't turn the bike, you are still too leaned over and use the edge of the tyre. All the riders say that. So there's still areas to work. He's saying the engine is powerful enough, but the problem is getting that power on the ground, So it's not looking great yet.
No, it's not. It's a tricky thing. Obviously, we know that Honda they're giving it their all, and it's not exactly like they're out there not trying. They really are trying, and we've seen that in the last years or so, with them throwing countless parts at it, reinventing the bike, and again this year,
there's
big
three
changes.
different chassis there, isn't there?
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
4 if you count the 22 bike.
Exactly. And it now does seem that they've narrowed that down to they're going to focus on 2 chassis at least and just kind of run with them and see how good they can make it. It was quite interesting, actually. You've just reminded me of a thing that Paul Espargaro said about the side fairings with the ducts on. It was probably the best explanation we've had of just how much they helped. He said obviously it helped with turning, and then it also helped with top speed as well, which was quite an interesting thing. Not too sure how, but I presume it's something to do with maybe lessening the angle of attack of the wings when it's on the straight, or reducing drag.
I don't know. I'm not going to answer because it'd only be a guess.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I really don't know.
But it was a good little insight there, and obviously we know that Honda are looking at both of those things, so hopefully they can find one of the combinations to help them out with it. Now, we have spoke about all the factories basically, so we should really talk about some of the guys that are on the satellite bikes. I think we'll start with the VR46 guys because they seem to be doing great.
Yeah, but they have the 22
they do.
Ducati.
Yeah.
Basically they've got what Pecco finished the season on last year, and Pecco and Jack, and that bike is probably the best bike motorcycle racing machine on the planet to this date.
Yeah.
So. And they've got lots of data on it, meaning they had the race on that machine. They can give them all the information. You're going to be happy. Those riders were already on the Ducati in the first place. So,
exactly.
I mean, that's a good place to be, isn't it?
Well, maybe then those riders were already on the Ducati in the first place. We should talk about Alex Marquez, because that is another man that seems to be quite happy. Obviously, a big change from Honda, which are struggling and seems like a little bit of a headache, to Ducati, which have everything kind of plain sailing at the minute. He's going well, going really well, and kind of understatedly well.
I have said a few times last year, I really think Alex is going to go well this year.
Yeah.
He's a proven world champion twice, in 2 different classes. He's intelligent, the guy's good, and he's getting on arguably the best machine ever. The result should be good, I actually had a really nice chat with him first thing this morning before he got on track, again about dogs and about how nice the Ducati is. And we chatted that, I had that 6 laps on it last year at Misano out on the 22 machine, and pointed out the things I'd noticed, and he smiled, just things like the clutch, how well the engine brake management works on entry, so it's so stable, it helps you stop. Obviously the speed, but he had a big grin and confirmed all those things. I'd said that it's the first machine I've ever got on that I never wanted to change anything. Everything was better than me, and he was like, he put it that the potential was so high, and that's what you feel when you jump on.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully the potential is, as you say, very high, and we do know that it is as well. Speaking of potential, obviously we have one rookie in the field this year, with Augusto Fernandez. He's had 6 days on track here, which I'm sure you will know around this place is a very hard ordeal. How do you think he's getting on? Because he does seem to be slowly getting there, doesn't he?
Well, he said on the first day that I think it was a little poke at another colour machine, but he said that's the first time I've enjoyed riding a motorcycle since 2021, and you can see that in his body language. Aggressive, like he's having fun and trying to push, you know. And Aprilia, I spoke to Massimo.
Sorry, I'll just cut you off there. I meant Augusto, not Raul.
Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
That's all right. No.
Okay. Augusto. I haven't had a chance to catch up with Augusto. And I briefly did with his dad. They seem to be really enjoying it. It's a massive experience, you know. MotoGP bike, first time here. Massive. He's had the shakedown as well. And you're right, his hands will be achy.
Yeah,
he hasn't had all the updates. It kind of makes sense because you can't expect a rookie to choose such critical things when it's so hard to feel differences and feedback. So they're relying on the other three to choose the material to homologate, but it'll filter through to Augusto for sure. And Augusto, I mean, he's a talent, you know. He was a talent early when I met him in EJC, European Junior Cup. He ended up winning that championship, and he's pretty much won at everything he's tried since. So let's hope he can put it on the box eventually here as well.
Well, that was actually him that you just saw on camera there, scooting through the shot. I think teammate Paul Espargo was just ahead of him as well. And Paul, for Augusto, will be a very, very valuable source of information and knowledge, so he can learn really how to get the best out of a MotoGP machine. Now, obviously, we're coming towards the end of the Sepang test, Simon. We know who's kind of in a bit more trouble and a bit more bother than others. But we also have to look ahead to Portimao test. There's only 3 more days of testing there. Who do you really think is going to be looking at Portimao as, oh, okay, we might be pushing this a bit close to really make a step up?
I think everyone can guess that from what we've been saying. Yamaha have their engine confirmed. KTM are deciding, you know, on their engine, I think, configuration, but I don't think it's going to be hard for them. They've already got the parts ready, I think, you know. It's more about aero choices for everyone, and the one that to me stands out in trouble is Honda at the moment, because they've got their engine done, but they can still play with chassis and try to get that right in the future into the season, because chassis aren't limited, you know. You can keep on trying, but they've got to have a go at aero, and they've got to get closer than they are. As I mentioned, I mean, they've got 3 winning riders, you know, proven winners on the Honda, and they're 2 LCR riders, and the 2 LCR riders. Sorry, I'll say it again. Mia Rins and Marc Marquez are proven winners. The bike isn't up to the job at the moment, I don't think, to win unless one of them force it, and I think to force it is risky.
Well, we'll certainly see how Honda goes over the next half a day, the last half a day here in Sepang, and forward onto the Portimao test coming up at the start of next month. But I think that will just about do us here for this midday roundup. We do still have, as we say, half a day on track, so there is still half a day for Honda to make a bit of a breakthrough before we have to go packing all the way back to Europe. So we'll see what they can do.
The worrying thing, while you say that, is Honda have had the winter and they haven't found the jump forward. Now they've got a month or not long, a few weeks to try and make that jump forward. The time is running out. That's why I'm worried for the Honda riders.
Yeah, time is running out here in the Sepang test. Only half a day, as we do say. Join us, of course, for the final After the Flag show here in Sepang, hosted by Lewis Sotheby and Neil Morrison. Simon, as ever, will be bringing you all the latest updates that we do see down in pit lane throughout the rest of the afternoon. Hopefully the rain does stay away. There are some clouds floating around, but, well, my phone says it's going to rain later, but that's useless looking at that, because it hasn't
Fingers crossed it doesn't.
Rain. Fingers crossed it doesn't rain. Remember, 5:30 after the flag. And if you're not signed up to MotoGP.com, there is a free trial at the moment, so make sure you go do that and you'll be able to watch After the Flag this evening for free. Thank you very much. This is the last time that we'll be checking in on you at the midday reports here in Sepang. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you later.